Elizabeth Williams, founder of the sexual assault advocacy group No More Free Passes, was working late one night when she received a phone call. On the other end was a panicked woman calling from her hallway closet with her children, while her husband paced upstairs, threatening them with his gun. Living in rural Alaska, no local law enforcement was available, and state troopers would not arrive until a full day later. Williams recalls the heart-wrenching task of staying on the line with the mother all night, waiting for the unthinkable. Unfortunately, this is not an isolated incident. For female victims of violence in rural areas, access to resources such as women's shelters, hospitals, rape kits, and even law enforcement are inadequate. Or worse, non-existent. This leaves thousands of women living outside major metropolitan areas vulnerable. So today, we will examine the problems, causes, and solutions to the barrier between rural survivors and the help that they deserve. Because living a quiet life should never mean living a silenced one. In a guide issued by the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Domestic Violence, one woman was recounted saying, "When you're out on a farm at night, there's no one to hear you scream. There's nowhere to go except out on a dark road. Country living inspires images of open fields, clear horizons, and above all, safety. Many would not imagine a small town an eventful place, let alone a dangerous one." However, testimonies like this woman's challenge this long-standing narrative. According to 2017 data collected by the FBI, rates of both rape and aggravated assault in non-urban areas are comparable to cities with populations up to 99,000, meaning a small town under 10,000 would have similar rates of assault as a city roughly the size of Tuscaloosa. Even more troubling is that these numbers only account for incidents reported. The Bureau of Justice outlined in 2017 that only 46.8% of violent crimes in rural areas are taken to the police, meaning over half go unreported. This thoroughly illustrates just how pervasive this problem has become. In states like Alaska, whose territory is primarily rural, violence against women is an invisible epidemic. According to a June 25, 2019 article from USA Today, almost 2/3 of adult women in Alaska have experienced either sexual assault or intimate partner violence in their lifetime. Activist Elizabeth Williams explains that if Alaska were a third world nation, they'd declare a humanitarian crisis, and the United Nations would move in. But regrettably, the issues associated with rural violence against women do not stop with its prevalence. The causes of this problem are diverse, but can be narrowed to two predominant sources: the culture established in rural areas and isolation from resources. The first of these can be attributed in part to the same characteristics that draw people to country living in the first place. Close-knit communities are a well-loved sentiment shared by those living in a small town. However, this also leads to an almost complete lack of anonymity for someone seeking help from their abuser. According to the Rural Health Information Organization, or RHI, on September 26, 2018, in a community where everyone knows everyone, it's likely a reported account of rape, sexual assault, or domestic violence would spread quickly. A nightmare scenario for someone seeking confidentiality. The RHI also argues that while topics pertaining to the Me Too movement have been a dominant issue in recent years, rural areas lag behind in their acknowledgement of the problem. In our society, what is considered acceptable is often confined by the attitudes of a community. In an area where women are routinely accused of lying about or over-exaggerating the extent of their suffering, it's no wonder why some are reluctant to come forward. For instance, in 2016, when Melanie Keener, a county chief deputy in rural Nevada, reported her boss for sexual harassment, not only was her report ignored, but she was relegated to a lesser position. Meanwhile, her boss remains the sheriff of the county despite continuing reports of harassment including rape. But perhaps the greatest barrier to rural women seeking help is isolation. By their very nature, remote areas can be hundreds of miles from the nearest metropolitan area. This means victims often find themselves a great distance from the nearest social services or medical care. According to a 2011 study from the Journal of Women's Health, over 25% of rural women live more than 40 miles from a shelter. This, coupled with the fact that these areas provide little to no options for public transportation, leaves victims with no viable options for escape. Kylie Marie Stock, a lawyer advocating for victims of domestic violence, tells the story of how one woman's husband, living in an agricultural community, went so far as to burn the family car to keep her and her children from leaving. Shelters that do exist are underfunded and understaffed. The aforementioned study from the Journal of Women's Health found that rural women are twice as likely to be turned away from services due to inadequate funding and resources. In the case of rape or sexual assault, a 2016 report from the Government Accountability Office found that U.S. hospitals suffer from a severe shortage of both rape kits and medical examiners. In Colorado, only one hospital staffs examiners full-time, and some victims must drive an hour or more to receive help. For this reason alone, some victims never get tested. I personally know just how devastating this problem is. In my small Kansas hometown of 2,000 people, there is no local women's shelter, and the nearest hospital stacked with rape kits is over an hour away. I have felt the climate surrounding this issue, witnessed the ridicule and ostracization women brave enough to tell their stories have suffered. I can't help but worry that if one of my friends or family members were to find themselves in a similar situation to those that I have described, that I have no idea where they could turn. It is for these reasons and for the women I spoke of today that I implore you to help me solve this problem on the personal, community, and national level. First, on the personal level. Currently, the greatest danger to these victims is remaining overlooked or forgotten. To help this, today I brought with me some stickers a teammate and I designed. Stick them on your water bottle, your laptop, or your blazer to show your support. On the back is a link to my Twitter account, created specifically to educate on this issue, and to provide links to online resources for women who may be struggling themselves. Please give me a retweet or a follow to help spread this information. This leads me directly to the second part of my solutions, community action. For example, professor at the University of Wyoming, Matt Gray, is using telemedicine to give counseling sessions to people in underserved areas. According to a March 1st, 2019 article from the Ohio Valley Resource, telemedicine allows victims to receive sessions through a secure internet connection, no matter how far they are from a counseling center. If the victim needs to be removed from the situation, mobile services is another idea being utilized to reach out to women. According to a February 24th, 2019 article from the Iowa Gazette, the Sioux Family Crisis Center uses mobile services to cover a 17-county area in northeast Iowa and prides itself in being able to respond to a call within an hour. There are initiatives such as temporary housing, employment training, community awareness, campaigns, and violence prevention programs that all seek to aid victims in rural areas. Ways to solve this problem exist, and they're working, but they must be expanded to cover more than a few select counties. This leads to my final solution on the national level. Government grants to rural areas make it possible to support programs like these through the Violence Against Women Act, but these grants are limited and in dire need of expansion. However, in 2020, the VAWA is struggling to survive as is. A bill renewing funding passed through the House with ease, but has yet to be renewed by the Senate. because frankly, Republican lawmakers want to keep firearms in the hands of convicted stalkers and domestic abusers. While the VAWA is caught in the crosshairs of a messy gun control debate, the safety of America's women hangs in the balance. Today I brought with me further information on the Violence Against Women Act, as well as a pre-written message to your senators. Please call them, write them, let them know what a failure to pass will mean for their constituents. Because for these lawmakers, passing the VAWA costs them a vote. For victims, a failure to pass may well cost them their lives. Today we have discussed the problem of violence against women in rural areas, explored the challenges victims face, before finally examining some potential solutions. Elizabeth Williams says the woman she spoke to on the telephone that night still has not found a way to leave her situation. This problem is a complex one, with no easy solution. However, in continuing to find innovative ways to reach out to women, we can ensure that all victims can enjoy their right to safety, no matter where they live.